Hello guys, my name is Anna and I'm a Ukrainian, and I have decided I will vlog daily from my country Ukraine since the start of this awful war with Russia. And in my daily videos, I try to update you on the important real-life situations in my country Ukraine, and of course I'm always glad to answer your questions and to clarify some facts from our history, culture, background, or whatever interests you. And recently I have received a lot of questions about Belarus and the update on the situation inside this country and their readiness to participate in war. So today I will record a vlog dedicated to the recent political and military events in Belarus. For me, it is also very important, and I closely follow the news from our northern neighbor, as the region where I live borders not only EU, in particular Poland, but also borders Belarus. And it is pretty close to us, and I know that the region is pretty well protected by the territorial defense and Ukrainian armed forces. Also, we have very dense forests and very damp marshes, which are difficult to cross, but we have to be careful and to pay attention to the updates. Actually, yesterday I had a very short spell of panic and decided to repack my go-to bag, but today I feel like more relaxed. I have taken out some things I might need on a daily basis from that bag, So Belarus is a country that I hope will soon be liberated from the Lukashenko's regime, and I am more optimistic about Belarusians or Belarus people, not to equate them with Russians, because at least rarely, but they try to change the regime. They had protests in 2020, and there are lots of Belarus people fighting for Ukraine. There are lots of democratic movements inside the country, and they are not that brainwashed with Russian propaganda as the majority of people in Auckland. Also, since the start of this awful Russian war in Ukraine, many Belarus people were interviewed, and actually they oppose the idea of war. They don't like the things that are happening here, as they describe it, and the majority of Belarus military are not very much into joining this war. But for us Ukrainians, Belarus is a country that participates in this war because their dictator Lukashenko, who is 100% dependent on Putin and his regime, gave Belarus to Russian dictators' disposal. That is, we may agree that Belarus is not an independent country at the moment. It is a part of the Union State, as they call it, a part that is very much under the influence of Russian Federation. Many of missiles were targeted on the territory of Ukraine from Belarus. Some of the military actions were started on the territory of Belarus as they moved to Kyiv, Chernihiv, and other northern locations of Ukraine at the beginning of this war. In the majority of cases, these were not Belarus soldiers, but Russian soldiers. Still, they were moving from the territory of Belarus that was open for them. So we have to keep a huge number of armed forces on the northern border where no military actions take place, just to be on the safe side. You cannot leave borders with Belarus unprotected, but at the same time, these people are very much needed in a hotter zone of Ukraine. Also, Belarus is used for the storage of weapons and various military things that Russia needs, and some of their generals participate in the organization of terrorists and other things on the territory of Ukraine. And of course, Lukashenko supports Putin, but at the same time, I feel like he's afraid to openly enter this war and tries to play this double role, being a friend, a supporter of Putin, and trying to pretend that he did not take part in this war so far. Yesterday they had a meeting, and he said that the level of danger is really high, and if it continues to be that way, they will work together with Russian military, but they are already working, so nothing different happened. Of course, there were a couple of messages inside Ukraine that pretty soon they will attack our northern borders, but it does not seem like that. And actually, we know that there are not many people, military soldiers in Belarus. They are not very well prepared, and they don't have desire to enter Ukraine. We had real news, like at the beginning in March, that many Belarus soldiers opposed the idea of moving here. They have partisan movement who destroy railways that carry weapons to Ukraine. So in general, that population is not a supporter of the war. The same is about soldiers, and we've heard about a couple of sabotages when Lukashenko realized that he should not push his military because they can turn back at him. But at the same time, they've got lots and lots and lots of Russian military on their territory, and Lukashenko realized this, that when Putin's regime falls, his regime falls the next, or maybe even before. And for me, this couple, Putin and Lukashenko, they remind Hitler and Mussolini. Their fates are very much interconnected. And today, the elected president of Belarus, Svetlana Tsikhanouskaya, addressed Zelensky and invited him to support diplomatic relations with her government of Belarus, promising joint fight against Lukashenko and other totalitarian, authoritarian regimes, and further cooperation after Belarus is liberated. Well, these are not bad news, but this is nothing great. Why? Because I understand like that Lukashenko is a so-called president who suppressed peaceful revolution and stayed at power, and he's a dictator, the oldest and the longest ruling dictator in Europe. But I cannot tell you that I'm a huge fan of Tikhanovskaya, because she does not seem to be very active, and I don't feel like they have real government working in exile. She is more like working on the situation. Of course, it's good for both of our countries, and I'm not going to deny that she is like 100% better than Lukashenko, but I don't know. Let me know, how do you feel about her? For me, she is not like a true leader, but perhaps the best that can be right now in Belarus. My grandma was actually born on the territory that now belongs to Belarus, and so I may say that maybe I have a couple of drops of Belarus blood in me. And this is a nice country. It's not very big. It does not have access to the sea, but it is dramatically Sovietized or something. They are very much under the influence of Soviet Union and Russia. They lost to a great extent their cultural identity, and it is a tragedy for me as a linguist to observe how few people speak Belarus language. And many Belarus reacts like laughing when they hear their native language, and it is the result of toxic Russian chauvinism that was applied on their society for decades. They have beautiful culture, they have beautiful history, they have beautiful language, and I so much wish them to return it all back, to revive it all back. But honestly, the situation with cultural identity, with political identity, is really tragic in Belarus. It does not go in any comparison with Ukraine, the Baltic countries, or Poland. And I think it is our duty, after we win this war, to support Belarus people and to help them return back their cultural heritage. And I hope this will be possible, because Lukashenko is a funny, totally dependent dictator, but at the same time, he's not like 100% insane, and he sees that Putin is losing this war. That's why I think he does not march on the streets of Kherson or elsewhere. He tries to keep low profile, but he's always under pressure, and that's his role, that's his choice, and like they have to die together like Hitler and Mussolini. We are very much attentive to the news about kamikaze drones because many of them are located in Belarus regions pretty close to my district where I live, and some of the objects in Ukraine, some electro stations were already targeted by these kamikaze drones. And you are right, there are lots of things that I know now, things that I would have never want to know, like what is a kamikaze drone, and that typically they fly in flocks, just like not one but 20 or 8, and when they come together, this is a perfect targeted bomb that can destroy some specific objects. And it seems to me that one of the electro stations in Vinnytsia region was already shot by drone kamikazes. So now we joke in Ukraine that we have to be careful when riding a motorbike or something because it resembles the sound of drones, and people hate those who create similar sounds. To tell you the truth, when you hear the sound of a plane flying, when you hear a car but in a weird manner so you cannot identify whether it is a car or not, or when you hear something weird outside, you feel like for a couple of seconds because you don't know what is going on. And I have personally heard the sound of missiles flying. This is a very ugly sound because you understand it carries somebody's death. So we are very much attentive to these sounds, and you know that these days are really hot in Ukraine, but at the same time I'm very much proud of my people, their bravery and strength. And for example, during the last day when we were heavily attacked from Russia, one of the popular volunteer funds of Ukraine managed to collect close to $10 million from Ukrainians who were donating for a revenge. And I think it's beautiful. And I think Putin understands he can never win this country. That's why he is so angry. Thank you very much for your support, for your kind comments, and for your attention that you provide to my country. Thank you for standing with us during these dark times, but we will definitely win, and we will win together, and the world will become a better place again. Thank you for buying me coffees, for becoming my patrons. Introduce yourself to our new project Soviet Myths Debunked, where we talk about Soviet myths that still fuel Russian military machine. Put your questions and like this video if you share my opinion, and please subscribe to my channel because more people have to know what is going on in Ukraine while we are winning this war. Slava Ukraini!